he increase your word. Okay. If Jesus himself is known as the Word of God, okay? He's known as the Word. When the Bible said in John chapter 1, all things were created by him and for him. In the beginning, it said, was the Word. And the Word itself was God. And the Word was with God. So it's not until you get to John chapter 1 and verse 14, it said, and the Word himself, the Word himself became flesh, right? This Word became flesh. So when Jesus desires to take you to the next place, he doesn't come in the physical manifestation again. He comes in the form of the Word. So he gives you words, and these words are to increase your faith because you heard him spiritually. So God looks at every word that you now receive, whether you call it prophetically or God speaks to you directly, whatever word that you now receive, he's coming back in word form because he's trying to increase your faith. Faith cometh by hearing. He's trying to bring you into a level, watch this, to where now you have the deposit so you can withdraw. Yes, because where you're withdrawing from, it ain't earth. You're withdrawing from heaven so that earth can respond. I'll say that again. God gives you words from heaven so that earth can now respond to the word that you heard from heaven, because earth must align with the word that you received. Hear me. It was only two that could make it into the promised land, because 10 would bring back an evil report. Isn't it crazy that in the New Testament that Jesus would tell us, since it's only two, wherever two can agree as touching anything on earth that they shall ask, it shall be done by the Father which is in heaven. God left him two because the two was a witness. He would leave Joshua and Caleb, but God would express through Caleb. Caleb had a different spirit. And in this season, in spite of those that you connected to, those that you're around, those that you call your friends, those that you call your family, these people, watch this, are fondling you. They're fondling your faith. They're trying to get your faith to erode, to keep you back in the same place. God is trying to bring you into a promised land, but he gives you a word that's a promise to increase your faith, to excel beyond anybody else. So when people make an expression and say, you're going to go back to school? You're going to try to get a house on this salary? So you're going to get a car with this kind of credit? So you're going to start a church in this economy? Well, where are the people going to come from? This is not about peer pressure, but this is about your faith pushing pressure on your peers. Faith puts pressure on peer pressure and on your peers. So those that are negative, those that are doubting what God has spoke to you, see, these are the ones where God allows, watch, your frenemies. Because whether you know it or not, you have frenemies. People will come collaboratively to get together to speak against your faith, to speak against your destiny, to speak against your purpose, because they don't see your measure. They get mad because they don't know your measure. Now, family is one of the ones that implement this. Boy, when they see your measure, when God gives you a measure, okay. You do know that God gives everyone a measure of faith, okay? I'll explain it this way, okay? This is in Romans chapter 12. Let's go to Romans chapter 12 and verse 3. Right? Romans chapter 12 and verse 3. It said, for though the grace given unto me, for I say through the grace given unto me, I say unto every man that is among you, that he should not think that he is himself more highly than he ought to think, but think soberly, because God has given to every man, watch this, the measure of faith. Now, I explain measure. Some people cook, some people bake. I'll explain this measure through how we utilize cooking, right? So if you're making a cake, if you're going to make it from scratch, then automatically you know what kind of cake you're making. You're going to measure out your flour. You're going to measure out your sugar. You're going to measure out your butter. You're going to measure. Now, some people like myself, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I know how to do it without measuring. But some people are going to have to measure it out. In order for it to come out, you're going to have to measure it out. I'm going to say it again. In order for it to come out right, you're going to have to measure it out if it's going to come out right. You're going to measure. So God, when he sees you, when he's placed in you, God knows the measure that he's given you. Watch this, please hear me. Watch this, please hear me. God gives you your own measure. And the challenge that we face and the challenge that we have is often we don't know the measure that was given to us. Stay with me. So God would give Joseph 2 dreams. And we only look at the dream, not the measures. And Joseph's brothers, after he would recite the dream that was given to him, they would interpret the dream and they would get mad at Joseph and say that here come this dreamer. Let's kill him to see what's going to happen because of his dream. Watch this. But the measure that God gave them was greater than their madness. And they didn't have the measure to kill him. Some people, when they hear what God told you, or when they see what God has shown you, they get mad at you because of the measure that God gave you. Joseph was 17. His brothers would throw him in a pit. They would strip him of his favorite coat. They would sell him to the Midianites. They would make him a slave in Egypt. And Joseph would endure the prison. He would endure the lies from Potiphar's wife because Joseph had the measure to be able to save the whole world. So when the famine would come, after all the madness, the favor and the faith that God would give a man. Watch this, please hear me. And most of you in your trials, you don't understand the measure that God gave you. You're trying to say, why do I have to go through this? Why, God, am I struggling with this? I know the Bible said it rains on the just and the unjust. God, why is it not raining? What have I done? I'm doing everything right, but it looked like the wrong thing is happening to me. Watch this. And God is saying, I'm trying to activate and wake up your measure. Your problems and your circumstance, how severe they are, is only the magnitude of your measure. You're crying, why is this? Oh, it's got to happen to me. Watch this. And God is saying, it's because you don't know your measure. You don't know what I gave you. So you're crying because you see the madness, because you're unaware of your measure. Woof, woof, woof. And sometimes God has to allow things to take place. Okay, I'll explain it through scriptures, okay? Remember when God told the apostles in Acts, in the book of Mark, in the book of Matthew, that he would tell them, don't leave Jerusalem, watch this, until you receive power, right? Do you know that on the day of Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit would come, it said that cloves of fire would sit upon their tongues, right? God would give them this dunamis power. They would have power, but they didn't want to leave Jerusalem. Even after they received power, they were still stuck. They were still stuck and they had power and they didn't want to use their measure. Please hear me. So God would raise up someone by the name of Saul. Saul of Tarshish. And this Saul of Tarshish would now torment them, persecute them, only for them to release their measure. Now, after persecution, they would realize that I cannot stay here. The gospel have to go somewhere. Hear what I'm trying to say. That persecution and that pressure would come for them to spread the gospel, but God had to raise up somebody by the name of Saul of Tarsus in order to persecute them, in order to distort them, in order to flog them, is what the Bible said in the old days. Flog them. When you're getting flogged, that means whipped. So God would raise up Saul. People didn't see that God was raising up Saul and God was using Saul, even though Saul was wicked. God had in mind that Saul would become righteous, but he was still using Saul in wickedness because the ones that received power and the Holy Spirit, the ones that received them didn't move. So God had to raise up a persecutor for them to preach the gospel, for them to spread the gospel. Please hear me. Some of your persecution is waking up your faith so that God can use your measure. And Joseph, with all of the stuff that he had been through, when his brothers would finally come to him, you know what they said? He said, you did this for evil, but God turned it to my good. Watch, my measure, when it looked like it was madness. So in Romans chapter 8, it said all things work together for what? For your good. We didn't understand it then because it wasn't written at that time. So now in the New Testament, we see that when it comes to the life of Joseph, we see his measure. Watch this. And when madness came, God got pleasure. Hear this. You mean to tell me that God got pleasure out of my madness? You mean to tell me that everything that I went through, everything that I had to go through, God was getting pleasure? You don't know the system of heaven. If you would understand it, I can take you all the way back to this book in Deuteronomy chapter 8, when God would allow the children of Israel to go through Egypt and go to the wilderness and walk around and wonder. God would tell Moses to tell my people, it was me that suffered you to hunger. It was me that desired for you to go through this. God said, I wanted to see what was in your heart. Because I've given you a different measure, then God would call, watch this, Israel his firstborn son. So when God gives you a measure, this measure expresses and exemplifies. It's nothing more than a relationship. So I'm allowing you to be afflicted, as he would say. It pleased the Father to bruise the Son. Yes, because of Jesus' measure. Now, this is not child abuse. That God knew Jesus' measure, so he allowed him to be bruised. But even the mystery behind God allowing him to be bruised, you have to go back to the book of Isaiah. He was wounded for our transgression, bruised for our iniquity. So God knew that when it was concerning the life of Christ, it said it pleased the Father to bruise the Son. And by Jesus being bruised and him using his measure, iniquity was found in Satan. And iniquity is being released out of us. Satan clutches his spirit. His seeds are being released out of us because of Jesus' measure when he's bruised. So when God looks at his children, his sons and his daughters, you're thinking about your afflictions, your persecution. But it says in Matthew chapter 5 in the Beatitudes, blessed are they that are persecuted for righteous sake, for theirs is the kingdom. And you have no idea that your persecution is the introduction to the kingdom of heaven. So by you being persecuted and he enters you into this kingdom of heaven because of your measure, because of your faith, watch this, he now comes back to say, thy kingdom come and thy will be done. So now your faith, he's deposited something. So when you make a request from the kingdom must come, and his will must be done through your persecution, because your persecution has placed you in the place of the kingdom, right? Persecution, yes, blessed are they that are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Because you are persecuted, God calls you blessed, because God is allowing you to use your measure, and you now have the faith to move mountains. Okay, now let me go to Hebrew. Now, I'm not going to go to Hebrew first. I'll go to Hebrew last. I want you to go to James chapter 1. James chapter 1. James chapter 1. I'm going to start in verse 2. And I want us to hear this when it's concerning persecution, so that you'll know and you'll understand. Verse 2 says, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptation. The word diverse there means many trials, many adversities, many challenges. The word diverse means this: diverse temptation, right? And I know many people, we only see this word temptation as it being sensual or sexual, that deals with the five senses, right? But if I kept reading to verse 12, I'm not going to go there, but I'm going to explain to you about this word temptation and diverse temptation. Let me show you what happens if you can survive the diverse temptations. Yes, if you can survive this based on your measure. Temptation don't come until your measure has increased. There's no fights. There's no battle. You would never get a battle beyond your measure. So you say, man, it looked like everything happening. Everything has been thrown my way, even the kitchen sink. That battle only comes because your measure has increased. You don't fight. Some people will never get the liberty to fight principalities and powers and rulers of darkness. Why? Because your measure and your deposit has not got to that place yet. And the battle that you're in and the fight that you have is because God has increased your measure to where all of that stuff can come at one time. Hear me. Watch this. James chapter 1 and verse 12. Don't go there. Stay there. It makes a statement. Blessed are they. Watch. God talks about you being blessed. Blessed is the man, watch this, that endures temptation. For when he or she is tried, they shall receive the crown. Yes, you may not look like an earthly king and walking around with the crown or walking around like a queen. But God said, blessed is the one that endured temptation, for when they are tried. You're going to be tried in this place. He said, you shall. This is not an option. You're going to receive a crown. And many people are receiving crowns because of their measure. The madness only came because of your measure, but God has given you a crown. Hear me. Verse 3 says this. Knowing this, watch this, that the trying, wait a minute, that the trying of your faith, God personalizes it. I gave you this. I gave you this type of faith. But this type of faith is being tried, but I'm working on patience. Now, my challenge is, some of us are just like Paul, that the second that Paul experienced pain, he prayed 3 times. And some of us are praying, and the pain ain't going away. Oof. You've been praying, and God working on your patience. The faith is being tried, and you in real pain. But God saying, I'm trying to develop your patience. I'm showing you through this scripture how God allows there to be a greater deposit. Watch the deposit. Your trying of your faith works patience. right? Verse 4 said, but now let patience have his perfect work. You in pain and God is trying to perfect, but he's trying to download more into your account. God is trying to zeal you, cash app you, right in your spirit. Yeah, he's trying to bring a deposit. Yes, he's trying to zeal you. Why? Your zeal. I want you to hear it. God is trying to increase your zeal. Yes, your zeal. He's zealing you money. He's depositing things in your spiritual account so that you won't be spiritually bankrupt. But let patience have her perfect work. Watch this. That you may be perfect. Watch this. And entire, wanting to. So wait a minute. How is it that my trials, my struggle is going to put me in a place where I'm perfected and I don't want nothing? How can that be so? You mean to tell me my pain is bringing me close to perfection, to where I won't even have a desire? When God said he'll perfect the things that concern you, he's trying to perfect you so the things that concern you will no longer bother you, because now you have the deposit. Then you can withdraw now because you have the deposit. Yes, there's a withdrawal. Your deposit. Things are being deposited into you. And God is trying to express to you, let me show you this ecosystem of heaven. Hebrew chapter 11. Hebrew chapter 11. Hebrew chapter 11. Verse 1 says, now faith. Now let me stop it right there. Okay? Now if I read this to you in the Amplified version, it would explain it or give it to you in the greater manner or greater measure, right? Because it expressed now faith. Please hear me. The challenge that Moses would have in Numbers chapter 20 when it was concerning faith. Watch this. Use time that Moses himself would strike it. He would strike the rock and water would come out of the rock. Yes. So Moses would try to apply the same faith that he had to strike the first rock and thought it would be beneficial, watch, for him with this rock. Please hear me. And Moses would miss the promised land because he would try to use old faith for a new assignment. And you cannot use old faith for a new assignment. It's not going to be beneficial. And even though water came out of the rock, God kept him. Watch. God kept him from out of the promised land because you cannot use old faith to do new things. And most people are sitting on old faith. So it uses the word or the interpretation, the word now. The word now, you know what it means? Present, current. God is saying, is your faith, watch, up to current? You know when some teachers or nurses or doctors, they have to continue their education. So everything that they do, I have to renew my CPR class. Like me, my engineer license is lapsed. So I have to have to go back and get it renewed because it ain't current now. And God is saying, is your faith current now? You're asking for currency, but faith is heaven's currency. But is the faith that God given you so you can get your currency, is your faith, even though it's currency, is it current now? Now, faith. Now, present, current. Or is it absent? Ooh, can I tell you this? Please hear me. You know if you're operating out of old faith. Can I tell you how you know? Okay. God says, scriptures tell us, God takes you, watch this, from faith to faith, right? God takes you from faith to faith and from glory to glory. Watch this. So how did you stop at old faith? You stopped letting God escort you. And many people have stopped God from escorting them because they prefer to stay in old faith Yes. But that faith don't work. Now, watch, please hear me now. Don't get upset when I say this. Most people will. That's why you have people that only have testimonies from 20 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, because you stop allowing God to take you from faith to faith. If he takes you from that place, he's going to bring you into another place where you have to exercise the measure. That means if he can take you to another place, the measure change. So many people are going, and you've only got one blessing. You only got one testimony. I remember God paid my light bill 20 years ago, but he hasn't did nothing since. It means you stop allowing him to escort you to the next place. And many people don't like going forward because they don't have watch, because they don't want to deal with pain when God is trying to increase their measure. Can I tell you that promises introduce pain? That God gives promise. I'm going to give you this. The promised land is yours. Whew. Joshua, every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, I'm going to give it to you just as I was Moses. So shall I be with you. So you mean to tell me that I have to go forward and fight? Yes. You mean to tell me you said the promised land is mine. If I put my foot there, it's mine, and people are putting their foot in the place and don't want to fight because your measure ain't there. Now, this is the Amplified version. Now, faith, watch this, is the assurance. Watch, it says that the confirmation, the title deed. Watch this. You mean to tell me faith gives me the title deed? Wait a minute. When you have a deed to something, you now take ownership. It now belongs to you. But he's saying now faith is the substance, watch this, or the assurance, the confirmation of the title deed. You know what that means? Your faith paid for it. Yes, do you know what that means? If you have the title deeds to something, it means it's paid in full. Your faith just paid for something in full. You didn't have it in your hand, but you have it in your heart. And God saying it's the title deeds. Woo! Woo! Yeah! Yeah! Woo! 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 God said it was not in your hand. There was no physical information, no physical resources. There was nothing physical. Jesus himself would implement this with the 2 fish and the 5 loaves. Hear what I'm saying? Jesus would use now faith. What do we have? How much money do we have? Jesus would laugh because he know they didn't have money. Their dependency was in their pocket, not on God's promises, from Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26. Oh, yeah. The prophecy in Genesis chapter 1 and 26, it said that God now be fruitful and multiply. Now God was giving us the ability to be fruitful and multiply, to replenish and subdue. God was giving us that. And Jesus would have to come back to show us that I am the confirmation that I have the title deeds to multiplication. Ah, yeah. Yes. So he was trying to explain to them with the expression that I carried the title deeds to multiplication. This is the assurance. I have the assurance. Watch me bring the confirmation. I will confirm what the Father does. It's multiplication. And 5,000 would be implemented. 5,000 would manifest. 5,000 would come forth. Why? Because Jesus had the title deeds to multiplication. Watch this. Of the things, now faith is the assurance, the confirmation, and the title deed of things, watch this, we hoped for. Watch this. The proof of things we do not see, and the conviction of their reality. Oh, no conviction, no currency. Listen, God convicts you because he had to convince you. The convicting is only for, hear me, he convicts to condition you. Of their faith perceiving as real facts what is not revealed to the senses. Your sensuality, your five senses, will lie to you when it comes to the measure of faith that God has given you. Your sensuality, your taste, your touch, your talk, your eyes, what you hear, your physical senses, sensuality. Can I tell you this? And I'm going to say this because most time what stands in the way of our faith is the work of the flesh. When God gives you something, okay. Yeah, people have heard this saying for a long time, okay? And I'm trying to be quick and cut it off. Okay? God gives an expression, and God will say, I want you, watch this, to go to school. Okay? I'll use another analogy because going to school is easy. You can get grants and all that, so that's not good. So God will say, I want you to start a business. And you're like, wait a minute, God. Did you see what was in my bank account? Right? So, and then we get slick with God. It don't count because you don't see what's in my bank account. Because you're trying to count what's in your account because you don't see your spiritual amount. So God tells you that it's going to cost $1 million in order to start, watch this, your restaurant. And here you are thinking about all the gadgets and the gadgets. You're thinking about the stove, the ovens. You're thinking about all these warmers and all this, and you don't have the resource. It's going to cost $1 million. Plus all the certifications that you got to have from the state. And you're thinking that this is going to be a great amount. $1 million when the Bible said God owns the gold and the silver. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Watch this. And you're thinking about the amount because you don't see what God deposited in your spiritual account. He's telling you that at least, watch this, if the restaurant is $1 million, then I've deposited in you $1,000,001. Yeah. So this ecosystem that heaven have, I want people to see it. I'm going to read verse 2. For by faith or trust, a holy fiber, born of faith, the men of old, watch this, the men of old, talked about that earlier, the old path, had a divine testimony, born to them and obtained a good report. So you mean to tell me that this is one of the reasons that God was talking to them in the Old Testament, but he speaks to us in the New Testament that talks about, and we overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. So we're seeing that those that had a divine nature, those that were old, those that were of holy fiber, born of faith, the men of old, had a divine testimony of how they overcame the enemy in their day. And here God is saying they obtained a good report in their day. And we don't have the same report in our day. Listen. Verse 3 shows us the ecosystem of heaven. Oof. It says, by faith, we understand that the worlds. Now, if I ain't got time to talk about it all, now my question is, we live in this world, but why does it have an S on it? What other worlds did God create that exists that we don't have the opportunity to go to? I know there's other planets, yes, but is there civilization in those worlds? We understand that the worlds during the successful ages were framed fashioned, put in order, and equipped for their intent purpose, for by the word of God. You mean to tell me that our earth that we live in today understands, if you have it, if it was framed by it, then why don't the earth reproduce for you? We see it, I told you, in the days of Joseph, in the days of Jacob. We would see that Jacob would plant in the land, and Laban would keep wanting to desire to keep Jacob there because he would produce, because the earth would respond to how it was created, and Jacob would plant a seed. His father Isaac, it said, and Isaac sowed in that land and reaped 100-fold and had many children, because the earth will only respond by how it was created. It was created by faith. So the earth understands and can recognize your measure. It will recognize your measure. So when Adam fell in the garden, he lost his measure. Oof. Okay, can I go back and explain something when I said that some people operate out of old faith? Right? If the earth itself, our ecosystem, functioned and was created, and the earth was framed by faith, do you know what God would take from Adam? If the earth and the seed shall produce after its own kind, okay? What was Adam's curse? He said, thorns and thistles shall grow. You know what God did? He kept them at his old measure, and the earth would respond to his old measure. Now, you do know the earth will listen to you. Everything that Jesus would do, he would speak to the wind. He would speak to the waves because of his measure. Adam lost his measure of faith. So even if he tried to sow in the earth knew that he no longer had a measure. So it was only going to produce thorns. Y'all hear me? In order for Jesus to remove the curse from Adam losing his measure, the thorns had to be placed on his head. Yes, the thorns had to be placed in the righteous place. It had to pierce the flesh to get to blood. Now, please just hear me. No, hear what I'm getting ready to say. Please hear me. Because it had to pierce, right? It had to pierce the skin, the thorns that came from Adam when Adam lost his measure. So the earth would only produce thorns and thistles. So Jesus would take the thorns and the thistles, watch this, and allow the blood, his skin, his flesh to be pierced so that it can reach his blood. Now watch this, please hear me, so you'll understand what I'm saying. When Cain killed Abel, how did God know? It said that when he was planted or buried in the earth, his blood would speak. So when they would place the thorns that came from the curse of Adam on Jesus' head, it said the blood is now speaking. It said the blood of Jesus speaks better than the things of Abel. You didn't understand that his skin was being pierced, but it needed to be blood so the blood can speak greater than the curse, and God was releasing the other measure. This ecosystem that heaven has established, that the earth, so in the book of Romans, that it makes an expression. It said, hey, don't you know that the earth, watch this, has an expectation. Wait a minute. Do you know another word for expectation is hope? And the other word for hope is faith? How does the earth has an expectation? It said, but it waits for the transformation of the sons of God. How is it that the earth is waiting on the transformation so that we can operate in a different measure? How can the earth has an expectation for man? Watch this, watch this. Can I tell you something? Okay, let's go to chapter 6, verse 6. And I'm going to conclude it here, okay? I'm going to conclude it here. And then I get back to the mountain. It said, for without faith, it is impossible to please and be satisfactory to him. Woo, I like this amplified thing. I'm feeling amplified now. It said, for without faith, it's impossible to please and be satisfactory to him. You mean God is satisfied? When we maintain our faith, watch, for whoever would come near to God must be necessarily believe that God exists and that he is a rewarder of who earnestly and diligently seek him out. You mean to tell me if I just maintain my faith, I'm going to be rewarded for it? I know you may look like a fool right now, but God said if you maintain your faith, it's satisfactory to him. Satisfactory. It's crazy that God is satisfied. He's satisfied because of your faith. Watch, and the rewarder comes. Woo! The rewarder comes. If you're diligent and seeking him, this is how you know you have faith. Your diligence, your persistence, you're coming. So in Jeremiah chapter 29, I know we understand verse 11 where it says or makes the statement or phrase, for I know the plans that I think towards you, plans of peace and not of evil, to give you, watch, what the earth understands, an expected end. You mean to tell me that God is saying that if you continue to seek me, the earth is going to respond to you. I'm going to respond to you. The expected end. The earth has an expectation. God has an expected end. All because you maintain your faith. You kept coming when things stopped showing up. Yes, when the resources stop, when it looked like your health is stopping, when it looked like people have stopped, God said, if you diligently seek me, and in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 12, it said, yeah, don't you know that if you seek me with your whole heart, you're going to find me? The rewarder is there. I'm going to reward you because you kept your measure. Woo, 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 woo. You kept it. I know the phrase or the terminology we use. The greater the pain, the greater the blessing. No pain, watch. I'm not going to use the phrase or the reference, no pain, no gain. No. It's in this pain where God gives you the ability to reign. Yes, you can reign with God because of your pain, because of your faith. And when people see you, they say you're crazy. You'll still serve God like this? Like all of Job's friends. They will say you had to do something against God. No, you must have sinned against God, or all this would have never happened. Do you know the name Job? I know you know what it means. The name of Job means persecuted. Jesus. You mean to tell me God gave you the faith to deal with Satan, and Satan himself persecuted you? Ooh, 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 ooh. How did you rank that high? Well, God is asking and saying, have you considered the one that I gave a greater measure? Jesus would make a physical expression. I said this whole message today was you moving mountains, physical structures. Now, this is my challenge. Volcanoes were mountains before they erupted. Could it be that the sign of the eruption of the volcanoes, the reason they're erupting is because it has an expectation? The volcanoes are given an expression that it has an expectation and is waiting for the sons of God to manifest themselves, because the volcanoes are given a physical expression that these were mountains that erupted. because it has an earnest expectation. Isn't it crazy? Watch this. That man would fail God, and his expectation was still that they would please him. How would you become what failed you? Ooh. How would you come from glory and then wear skin clothes? How? You don't understand that this was the bridge that Jesus had to fulfill. It's not just him laying on the cross and into our salvation. It wasn't the fact that he's given up his life, that he would become a man to implement faith in the earth again. So where Adam would fail, he would become the second Adam in order to institute faith again, because he had to walk. Like he had to walk, he had to talk. So everything that he would exemplify, me and the Father one. So now that men and women would now know how to walk, know how to talk, and know how him and the Father would become one, and he would exemplify faith, and he was rewarded. He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. This ecosystem of heaven, to where we can call for the kingdom to come. His will now to be done is those that he has given the measure to where the earth, watch it, please, and I'm going to say this like I'm going to cut it off. It's going too far. That when Moses operated out of his measure, the earth was assigned to protect him. So when the 250 would come against Moses, because they were famous in the congregation, because the earth would recognize Moses' expectation, it said that the earth itself would open up and the fire would come out, which was a sign of hell, and swallow the 250 that was in the congregation, because Moses was operating in his measure of faith. That in Revelation chapter 12, that when it said this woman who carried the stars and the moon and the sun, this is how you know that Joseph was a part of that lineage, because he would see the stars and the sun and the moon bowing down to him. So now in the book of Revelation, we would see his measure, that his measure was now with the woman who was pregnant, who was carrying. And because of that, it said when the dragon saw that she was getting ready to birth, he opened up his mouth and water came out. But because of Mary's measure, it said the earth would respond and the earth would open up. And when the earth opened up, it said it swallowed the water. Y'all do. It was because of the earth was assisting. Is the earth dismissing and not assisting because you ain't using your measure? The last illustration of a rock, that they would tell Jesus, hey, stop this madness, man. These people are calling you a king. Stop it. Jesus said, if I tell you, if I stop them, it said the rocks know who I am. Woo, woo, woo. The rocks themselves know who I am. The rocks know my measure. And the rocks would cry out. The rocks have ability to hear. You think that God was telling Moses to speak to a rock and it couldn't hear him? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Woo. Woo. How do you get water? I know water can carve a hole through rocks, but how does water come out of a rock? Oh, yeah. You mean to tell me that even matter mattered to God? The earth, rocks will matter. You mean to tell me, I'm done when I say this. I'm done. I'm serious, I'm done. Okay. If this is all about mountain and rocks, why do you think that God would choose Peter? What is your name? You know my name is Peter. No, your name is Cephas, which means stone. Yes, Christ is the head, corner, so he's the rock of all ages. So he had to have somebody who was a rock. Watch. And God didn't speak, watch, strike this rock. He spoke to it. He would speak to this rock and living water. Peter, do you love me? Do you love me more than these? Now, since you are the rock, I'm not going to strike you, but I'm going to speak to you. Now living water shall come out of this rock, and 3,000 would be saved, because the rock released the water that Moses didn't. This is the hour where God is releasing living waters. Watch this. But it's going to come forth out of your rock. That system, the old path, was set in the Old Testament. Listen. And Jesus had to come in order to institute a speaking to rocks again. Thousands of generations would pass for that ecosystem of heaven to speak to matter. And now it matters. That Jesus himself would implement it. Whosoever shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and be thou cast in the sea. You mean to tell me that this mountain would uproot itself? Because your words, the earth will respond and go into the sea, and shall not doubt, but believe those things which he say in his heart. He shall have whatsoever he or she saith. Last thing I'm going to implement. Have you drawn beyond your deposit? And you're mad at God because he said, I gave to every man the measure of faith. And here you are talking about you're going to have the sun to stop and the moon to stop. And you don't have that measure, so you mad because you told people that and you don't have the measure. You have drawn beyond your deposit. You have drawn beyond your deposit. This season, hear me, God is trying to get you to use the measure that he's given. Yes. And this is your currency of heaven. As we have a currency, our dollar bill, that loses value. But heaven's currency don't lose value. It only, watch, it doesn't depreciate, but God appreciates the measure that he gave you. You don't lose your value. It doesn't depreciate. Like you can drive off a car, your car is $60,000 a day. Next year, it's $40,000 because it depreciated. But God doesn't appreciate your currency. Heaven's currency is faith. So it doesn't depreciate, but God appreciates it, because the Bible says that without faith it's impossible to please him. It don't depreciate. He appreciates you using your measure. So whatever mountain that stands before you, if you have the measure, you have the currency of heaven. Move your mountain. Thank you for tuning in with me today on Christ is King. You have a great weekend.